guys, Amanda here with Hearne Family Homestead. Today I'm going to be showing you my family's favorite sourdough biscuit recipe. So the first thing we're going to add is whole wheat flour. I prefer the nutrient density of whole wheat. You can also use white, although the amounts may change slightly. I find that when I use whole wheat flour, it does tend to make things more crumbly, but with this recipe, it doesn't do that as much. So let's get started. So the recipe calls for 7.5 cups of flour. Next, we'll add 1.5 cups of your favorite fat. It can be lard, butter. I've used coconut oil before and that works really well. And then we'll cut it in using a pastry cutter. And you just want to cut it in until it resembles coarse crumbs. Next, we'll add our yogurt. And it's 3 cups of yogurt, milk, or buttermilk. If you use milk, you may want to add just a touch more flour because the milk is more liquid. Now we'll measure 1.5 cups of sourdough starter. And we'll add the starter to the yogurt and flour mixture. Next, I'll be adding 3 tablespoons of sugar. You can use honey or any type of sugar you'd like. I'm using raw organic sugar. And now we just need to mix this together. And then we'll cover it with a cloth and let it set overnight. We'll add the last 3 ingredients in the morning, and I'll show you that as well. All right, it's the next morning. You don't have to let the biscuits set overnight. If you're planning on baking them in the evening, you can mix them up in the morning. So let's see what they look like. We're going to mix up the last 3 ingredients. It calls for 2.5 teaspoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. So we're going to put that in here. Did I say 2.5 of salt? 2.25 teaspoons of salt. 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. And then we'll mix this together with the salt really well. And it's always amazing to me the rise that you get when you mix these ingredients in with the biscuit dough. So I like to mix just a tablespoon at a time, and what I'll do is I'll sprinkle it over the top, and you just start kneading that in. Little by little. And you can feel it starting to get lighter. And when it feels really soft and really starts to come together into a ball, then you can roll it out and start cutting the biscuits. I'll just put some flour on my counter. So you can use a rolling pin. I actually prefer to just pat it out with my hands. one less thing to wash. Put some flour on top and just pat it out until it's about 1.5 inches thick. Now, to prep my baking pans, I have stoneware that I really like to use. You can use any kind of baking pan that you have. If it's not stoneware and doesn't have a good finish on it, I would consider just spraying it with some baking oil. But I like to actually sprinkle mine with salt. It helps the biscuits not to stick, and it also gives a really great flavor to the bottom crust. And then we'll just start cutting those out and laying them on, side by side so that they're touching. So the oven's preheated, so we'll go ahead and pop these in. And we'll let them bake until they're golden brown, about 20 to 30 minutes. So a quick word to the wise, use a pan with sides. I normally use something like this, but my big one had something else in it. And so I used the flat ones and I lost part of the biscuits in the bottom of the oven. I'll show you what I mean. All right, aside from the slippage off the edges, they're looking done. So this is what happens when you don't use a pan with sides. Sometimes it'll slide off the edge if you put them too close, which I did. But the ones in the little loaf pan actually look great. Thanks for visiting Hearne Family Homestead today. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos.